Brian Healy reporting. Here's the book, The Globalism of the Australian Nation by Graham L. Strawn, and that was written 1998. Here we are on the 22nd or 23rd of April 2020. Now, just a little bit of an overview, because I thought I'm especially wearing Back to the Future t-shirt because this has been predicted by myself and many others, in particular myself, over the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years. I've been predicting the financial crisis, along with many other people that appear on my website, healysnomorebs.com. Now, we've arrived. Oil has crashed as of yesterday. It is now minus, I think, $40 to $50 a barrel minus. In other words, the oil companies have to pay people to take it off their hands. That'll mean that the global supply chains, i.e., oil that moves the wheels of the economy, will be disrupted. Now, where are we at in time and space? Now, with my broadcast, I give you a little bit of, I suppose it's a spiritual perspective and it's an economical perspective. And behind me are the horses of the apocalypse. We've already had, I follow a very good Australian economist called John Adams. I'll give you the link at the bottom of this broadcast. Also, Martin North, who does a lot in digital finance, where he analyses statistics very well. Harry Dent, and many others, such as Mike Maloney, who's doing an on-the-spot report about the oil crisis. And if you go onto my website, healysnomorebs.com, you'll see the links to all these various people. So for 8 to 10 years, since the 2007 crisis, basically we have been, in Australia especially, but globally, we have been building a big debt bubble. So last time, 2007, I'll make this broadcast short because I'm not going to focus on the coronavirus. I'll say a few things about that in a second. And then I'll give you a biblical perspective on what I believe, my inner instinct, or some people say your gut feeling. Some people will say the Lord speaking to you, but my inner voice has been saying to me since about December last year. I'll give you a little bit of an insight there. So let's just go to the coronavirus first. Okay. Bottom line is, whether you believe it's was on purpose or on accident in Wuhan in China, the bottom line is the Communist Party of China cannot be trusted, and Australian politics, both sides of politics, more so the Labor than the Liberal, but the Liberal on the same agenda, have been sucking up to the Communist Party for the last 20 years. And they're allowing the Communist Party to buy key assets in Australia. And that's how they've been operating our economy, is by laundering the Chinese money into real estate, into various businesses. Now, when I talk about the Chinese Communist Party, I'm not talking about Asian people. Myself, my second wife was Asian. She's passed away now, rest in peace. She was from Hong Kong. I've been involved with through the martial arts and that with the Korean people for well over 15 to 20 years. So I love Asian people. I love Chinatown. Anything Asian's great, except the Communist Party. Now, what people don't understand, and other Asian people do understand this, that the Communist Party, just a brief summary, regarding the mismanagement of the US economy, the mismanagement of the Australian economy, trying to form a relationship with the Communist Party, it's just complete insanity. So what's happened as a net result, without Jim Rickards in particular has great detailed conversations about this. And if you don't know who Jim Rickards is, go onto my website, healysnomorebs.com, or go on to riseupaustraliabrisbane.com. I've got a complete economic recovery plan. I've had it there since May last year in cooperation with Daniel Nyala and Yvonne Gentle from Rise Up Australia in Melbourne. We had a plan. We had a plan when I was the lead Senate candidate for Rise Up Australia for Queensland. We had a full economic plan that would have turned Australia around, but the current, we were glad that initially Scott Morrison got in. Then I had a look at what Morrison's been doing over the last 6 to 7 or 8 months, and I must admit, at the end of the day, wasn't very happy with him at all. And the more I look at him, the more I realise he's really a globalist. Him and Frydenberg are still dealing with the Chinese behind our backs, and they have done so all the way up to the coronavirus. All the coronavirus has done has exposed the weakness of the Australian economy. It was weak anyhow. If you have a look at the articles that I've posted, reposted from economist John Adams, he explains this very clearly. Himself and Martin North, September last year, they declared a financial Armageddon for Australia. In other words, we were $2.5 trillion in debt, in foreign debt, and the majority of that foreign debt was to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, that adds up to a recipe for disaster, and here we are. Regarding the coronavirus, look, I personally believe that it was spread from the biolab, and there's a lot of evidence to prove that now. It was spread from the biolab on purpose, or maybe not on purpose, who knows. Bottom line is, it got out of that biolab. There has been a few documentaries done on it already. From about 2013, researchers actually, research scientists from that particular biolab have been announcing that they've been experimenting with the COVID-19 virus from bats to humans, and they've been playing around with the DNA in the chain, all sorts of things. And the bottom line is, it's got out of the bag. The other main issue with the Chinese Communist Party is they never told anyone for approximately 6 weeks or maybe more, and all the contaminated people on aircraft, including Asian students coming to Australia, where Slow-Mo, as I call him, did nothing about it. They infiltrated right throughout the universities, right throughout Sydney, right throughout Melbourne, down to Tasmania, and as a result, a slow reaction from Slow-Mo, we eventually started closing things down, sort of a bit late, and then all that did was expose a weak economy. Now, the economy was on the way to this huge debt bubble since 2007, and John Adams, you go into the finer detail with John Adams. That'll be a link on my broadcast. You can check that out. I won't go into that in great detail, but bottom line is that we were $2.5 trillion in debt. Frydenberg, or Frydenberg as I call him, they never told the Australian public about this, and they knew very well that we were skating on thin ice as far as global debt to GDP ratio. So we had a huge property debt bubble where the average house is about $1.5 million now. A pity help anyone trying to buy a first home or anything like that. So I'm just trying to get this all into one big picture for you. So at the end of the day, what's happened now is the coronavirus. Okay, look, it's starting to drop. That's great. But what it has done is exposed Australia's vulnerability to communist China. That's a fatal move from both sides of politics all the way up to now. Now we're in lockdown. Now the federal government has borrowed from the Fed. They borrowed, well, they say $200 billion John Adams says that's in real terms, that's 400 billion. So they borrowed 400 billion and they're paying everyone through Centrelink, through you haven't got a job now because we've shut down the economy. They're paying everyone. In other words, what happened in 2007? They bailed out the big banks, the bankrupt, illegally operating banks. They bailed them out, right? You saw none of that money. It went straight to the big banks. This time round, they're bailing out the workers, because this end of the continuum, they're bailing out the working class, I suppose you could say was that. But remember this, at the end of the day, they might be bailing out the working class, and that's costing, in real terms, about 400 billion, and you can refer back to John Adams, the economist, about that. What that means at the end of the day is we have now got a huge debt bubble. But what it also means, all this argy-bargy that was going on before the coronavirus about, the likes of Frydenberg, the likes of Morrison, the likes of Tony Abbott, the likes of the Labor mob, all of them saying that we didn't have the money, that we had to tighten our belts. You've got to now work to 68. Well, I'm 65 now. I'd like to see any of these politicians do what I do for work and study at this point in time. But here they were pushing this agenda, trying to push this agenda across to you that we're under some sort of financial crisis, like Abbott said. It was a financial crisis when Abbott got in. Now, I'll just say this to you without going into the details, and I'll just make this one very clear. Multinational corporations still don't pay tax. Now, get that through your head. Well, I don't mean that to sound offensive, but to get that through into your mind very, very clearly, multinational corporations still don't pay tax. You got it? We've just borrowed up to 400 billion. Now 200 billion, 400 billion, the real terms is about 400 billion, and the multinationals still don't pay tax. Right, where are we going to go from here? Oh, by the way, all the taxation in this country, 70 to 80%, is paid by wage and salary earners and small business, small to medium business. And the other thing I'd just like to announce is in the last 30 to 40 years, small to medium business, which is the backbone of the country, has never had any significant tax reform or tax breaks. Nothing significant, right? And in the meantime, along with the multinational corporations still not paying tax, your little politicians out there, the public service, the politicians have had no wage cuts. Like Morrison said, oh no, he's not going to take a wage cut. They're working twice as hard. Doesn't your heart bleed for them? You see, in this country, we've now inherited an elite government, whether it be Liberal or Labor. They think they're untouchable. They think they can do what they like to the Australian public, and we just have to suck it up. You've got to stay locked up in your room. You can't go outside of New South Wales, otherwise it's a $10,000 or $11,000 fine and 6 months jail. Sounds like a police state to me, doesn't it? But abortion's okay. You can murder children, we'll tick that in the box. You can be an LBG agenda, you can be anything you like in that area. You can be transgender, you can get all sorts of different operations. That's okay. But if you leave your room, on this particular occasion, we will lock you up. That's dangerous. I just finished listening to a broadcast about, and I'll post this as well, from Malcolm Roberts of One Nation. And I really like Malcolm Roberts. He's switched on. He's got the right perspective, and he's got a very clear education on the timeline from when globalisation started, the Lima Agreement, the UN agendas. All this sort of thing has gone on for the last 30 to 40 years. The net result has been you have had Australia eroded. You've had the guts sucked out of this country. We aren't the lucky country now. We're under a curse. Right. That's the big announcement. So, how do we get out of this? Right. As I predicted a couple of things in alignment with all these, nothing to do with the coronavirus. I mean, all that did, CV19 just exposed the weakness of the financial economic pathway or timeline we were on, which was a train wreck ready to happen. It just accelerated it a little bit longer than it, or a little bit shorter than it would have normally taken. We expected it maybe sometime this year, maybe later on this year, or whatever, the big bubble to burst. Instead, it's burst. It's happened more rapidly than we thought. Now, what timelines did I see when I was meditating on it spiritually? Number one, I said about in January that Scott Morrison would be removed as Prime Minister of this country and Andrew Hastie would replace him. Now, in the background, what we really need is a Donald Trump in the background in this country. We need someone who's got a bit of guts and a bit of nous and a bit of money. And I feel, about 10 years ago I predicted this, that Twiggy Forrest of Fortescue Metals would rise up. Now, the bureaucracy in this country needs to be trimmed right back. All these characters are being paid a lot of money for doing nothing, basically, except creating a whole lot of paperwork. So that, in this process over this year, I believe that we're going to, one way or the other, we are going to trim down and trim back. What I see is like the tree, call it Australia, is going to get trimmed right back almost to a stump, and then new growth's going to come out, right? Now, the dates I saw prophetically or spiritually, April 15 was Passover Day. I saw that about January this year. April 15, the coronavirus will drop down considerably. I see that's happening now. The next deadline I saw was the 30th of June, which would be a financial impact, a big financial impact. Now, with oil becoming negative, the price of oil, basically the petrodollar's crashed. Right, that's a financial crisis. That is what you call global depression. It's going to happen. Then the next date I saw was August, September this year. The plan forward. Now, in between now and August, September, by 30th of June, we're going to go down a very black, I call it the rabbit hole. We're going to go down that rabbit hole. And out of about the 30th of June right through to about August, there's going to be a plan forward. But from August onwards, there's a plan forward. And what's the plan forward? This is the plan forward. One, we have to reduce the amount of bureaucratic BS we've got in this country. Another Royal Commission into whatever, with the Royal Commission into this, or inquiry into that. Effectively, they don't do anything. So the government instrumentalities must be trimmed back, whether that be by a referendum, whether that be by another election. Something is going to happen which is going to cause us to contract the bureaucracy in this country. The other thing I forgot to say was towards the late last year, I got the two basic things for Australia was corruption will be exposed and the water rights will be part of it. A lot of parliamentarians are going to get sacked, maybe go to jail, be stood down over water rights. Now you watch what happens there. Now, regarding the outcome towards the end of the year, in the Great Depression in the US in the 1930s, what they did was build the Hoover Dam. See, countries don't have a shortness of money. We can print the money if we want to. So this is what's going to happen in Australia. The Bradford scheme will be built. It will start, the initial stages, it will start August, September this year, and it'll take 5 years to build. Now, if we can produce $200 to $400 billion like that by just issuing bonds to the Federal Reserve, we can build the Bradford scheme. And we need to re-sovereigntize this country. We need to bring back manufacturing. We need to disengage from the UN, the Lima agreements, all these globalist agreements. We need to disengage from them and make Australia great, so to speak, again. Now, how we do that is the Bradford scheme will be a pivotal point in that, in supplying jobs. We've got to recalibrate the taxation system so the global globalists or the global multinational corporations pay tax. Have a look at Rise Up Australia, Brisbane.com. I've got a full economic plan there. Plus, I do endorse and recommend the economists that I have on Healys NoMoreBS.com. John Adams, Martin North, Mike Maloney, these sort of people who they made their whole life's work studying the economy and how it works. I just try and join the dots together. Okay, that's Graham Healy, over and out. I thought I'd give that quick, well, is it a quick broadcast? I don't know. It's probably about half an hour, but we are about to go into a rabbit hole, June 30. And Australia we're going to have to, I'll leave it with this. There's a lot of things we could cover today, but there's just too much. I'll just quote Albert Einstein's famous definition of insanity. If we do the same stupid thing over and over and over again, that's the definition of insanity. So what we've been doing for the last 30 to 40 years is the same stupid UN agendas and the Lima Agreement agendas, globalism, which has actually eroded the economy of this nation down to where we are now, fully exposed to communist China. We don't have any manufacturing. We haven't got any. We've dismantled our coal-fired power stations. All the Greenies agenda. Now, where are they now? Is there a climate emergency? For goodness sake. It's time for change. The final word I'll give you is this. From isolation, there is going to be transformation. That's Graham Healy, over and out. A little bit of a rushed message today, but you know, it's happening, isn't it? So all this time when I've been speaking about the economics, the prophetic, all this, it's all just bang, come together. 2020, the year that Australia is going to be transformed, and it's not going to be transformed with the current bunch of yobbos in Canberra. You can guarantee of that. There's going to be a new sweep, there's going to be a spill, there's going to be a contracting back of the current bureaucracy. We have to recalibrate how we do government, how we do business. We have to recalibrate the whole way Australia deals with the rest of the world. But we've got the natural resources. So we're not in, from a natural resource point of view, we're in a very good position. We just need to get the right people in place to produce that and turn it around. Okay, Graham Healy, over and out. Have a great day.